I rarely do a lot of famous people. I do some once in a great while, but it's always your everyday people who, for the most part, the majority, I'm not saying I don't do famous people, but for the most part, it's your everyday people who do all these incredible things, and we walk past and don't learn about. And so I think that's really important. So that's kind of how I got introduced to the project. And then I asked them, I have this friend who's also an artist that I'd like to bring onto the project. And in the beginning, Rhonda had a student she wanted me to work with. So I'm like, yeah, sure, I can work with your student. Can I bring on this friend of mine? Because she's, I would like to work with her. I met her in the credential program, and she's an artist as well. And so she's like, sure. And I think there was a little, like, nobody knew Isabel, but I think in the end, everybody was so grateful that she came onto the project because she really added a lot to it.
Thank you, Ruby.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and she, Ruby talked about the project to me and kind of explained, what it was going to be about, and I was really intrigued by that. So, and I've never painted a mural before, so I thought it would just be a great opportunity to learn from Ruby, and just knowing that she's been a muralist for 20 plus years, so I thought it would just be an awesome moment for me to actually learn from her.
And of course we learn from each other, right? So, and that's just the way it goes in collaboration. It's never something where one person is completely the mentor. I think it's reciprocal. We kind of learn a little bit from each other. So Isabel has a lot of strengths that she doesn't acknowledge, but I think she has a lot of strengths. I think the way that what made this one different is that the people that were pushing this mural forward, the concept of this mural, really had a strong sense of community, and they had a strong sense of changing your community through positive activism. Maybe because we were all on the same wavelength as well, but it was such an enriching experience. And I was trying to tell Isabel, don't expect all your mural projects to be like this, because it's not always going to be. A lot of times you have to, play the politics with people, because you don't know who you're working with a lot of times. And so, yeah, I think that's how it's been different, because I think we're all on the same page as far as how important this project was. And so it was very community-oriented, collaborative, very supportive, very loving. It's the most loving project I've ever been on. So I really just feel really blessed to be part of this project.
Some of the symbols we came up with in our design process, but also we wanted the Poderosas on the mural to talk about the symbols that were important to them. And so we also incorporated some of those symbols that they resonated with. And then we kind of, with that process, realized that we share a lot of symbols that are important to us. And so in different ways, maybe, or in similar ways as well.
One symbol that I remember was the Capitol, the state Capitol. And we were trying to figure out as a committee, how do you fit the Capitol in such an organic design? Because it was, the person wanted to really recognize that sense of place, and that this is Sacramento, the work that's being done in Sacramento. And so through a lot of brainstorming, I don't know if it was your idea. Was it your idea? But somebody's idea was to put it in on the cover of a book, and then we came up, and it evolved to be, we titled the book Sacramento Her Stories, and with the Capitol, because the design was already really rich and full, and to put a Capitol in the background which is so geometric, it probably would have aesthetically wouldn't have worked, but we were able to come up as a committee to resolve that, to put it into the book, that are books that are in there.
it was definitely more about like social emotional teaching
that's true.
more than anything else. It's like, how can we like make more opportunities for students to be able to kind of express the way that they're feeling, whether it was like verbally or through their artwork, or but it was just like, let's just less about like the traditional part of teaching and more about that.
And I think that's why art and images are so important to me, because you don't need to speak a certain language or have a certain educational level to access them, and especially murals, because they're for the community. And it's and I can go into the first art show I ever had when I started painting the stories of the stories that I learned about my dad's side of the family, and I had my first art show with them. And this is when I started to like heal with my dad, and he had come in before everybody had arrived, and he saw his dad on the gallery wall, and he was like in front of Blue Mountain where he sheep herded, and my dad started, I could see my dad, his eyes started to well up, and he's like, I used to sheep herd with my dad there, and just tell me stories. And my dad doesn't talk or tell stories or hug or say I love you, and it was the first time that I got to experience a little bit of him and his voice, telling stories through your artwork, and how that can heal not only yourself, but it can heal other people, just to have that visibility of people who are suppressed in the schools, whose stories aren't told, and why I didn't even know the experience of my dad's story. I grew up learning about the Mormon pioneers and the struggles they had. I didn't learn about the Mexican American experience. I didn't learn about that until I got older and I got to ask those stories. And so this is an opportunity to fill in those gaps.
Being at school, like I wasn't really feeling confident at all. I hated elementary school. Elementary school was not fun because it was just being one of the very few people of color at the school, and not seeing like my culture being reflected in the curriculum, and just not really like feeling like I had a place there. I always felt othered or different. I was in high school that I really like took hold of like art and kind of just immersed myself in art, and that's really like what helped me like express myself, but also just feel like I had a place, like I was good at something, because school had taught me that I really wasn't.
You have to remember that I grew up in Utah. I grew up in Salt Lake City, Utah. I mean, it was clear minority there. And so everything about me was supposed to be bad, because everything I saw reflected in the media was like, we were gangsters, we were criminals. Those were the stories that got inside our bodies and our spirits and our minds. And sometimes everyone that was around me embraced those stories, including myself. I mean, I have to say, when I was young, I embraced that identity. I didn't really recognize the assets of my community until much later, when I started getting the other stories, the more historical facts of our stories. I didn't relate to a lot of the stuff that I was learning. I didn't see the curriculum reflect my own experience reflected in the curriculum. Everything that I learned about my own history has been through my own research, later asking my elders, or mostly in the credential program, or through or the one Chicano experience class that I had. And that was actually a light bulb that went off when the first time I heard the story of La Llorona in my Chicano experiences. I thought that was a story that only my mom told, that only we experienced, and she was at the Jordan River in Utah, and I didn't know that was a big Mexican folktale. But a lot of the stories started to become validated in that one class that I had. So I think that's probably one of the reasons why, where school can really oppress you, and why art is something that can inspire you. Somebody had told me you should speak with Professor Gonzalez because, I just got turned to him. This was after I graduated college. And so I went to talk to him. It turns out he grew up with my dad in Monticello. And he's like, who you need to talk to is, who carries a lot of knowledge of our history is Cosme Chacon. Well, Cosme Chacon is my grandfather. And so that's when I decided to go talk to my grandfather for the first time, was through this professor. And after I did all these paintings about what I had learned, I invited Professor Gonzalez to see him. And he too, it was so powerful because I saw a grown man, like my father, with tears welled up. And he just told me, he's like, "You don't understand, Ruby. They thought we were nothing." He's like, to see ourselves on these walls, he just said, well, they thought we were nothing. He's like, but look how beautiful we are. And I knew what I was doing was important. I knew that was my journey and that was my path.
Specifically when I think about students at Woodland High, there's a huge Latinx population, but there are still differences in how they form their identities within that group. Like some students, don't need any help thinking yeah, I'm proud to be who I am. Some students are struggling with, well, do I want to, be more like the dominant group, or not even that dominant group, but the group is not even dominant, but in their community who they hold as more dominant because they might come from more money, and so there's this struggle in their identity of whether or not they want to feel or how they feel proud of it. And so with this project, I'm hoping that just shows them that they can be proud of all of those things and still, want to be continue in education and make changes and understand that just understand the differences between people. Even though we all are from this community, we have different upbringings even within that community.
One of the things that comes to mind for me is that just this project and all the amazing things that all these women do to change their community, and learning the mural being interactive with the QR codes, and learning about them and what they do. And just these are women that are not famous, that are on YouTube, or in the movies, so, and they're reflective, they're everyday people that reflect our students. And so I think about this mural has the potential to inspire proaction and what they can change in their own communities.